All right, we're going to try this again. Let me just make sure it goes live again. And as soon as I see it come on, I will continue where I left off. Gotta love it sometimes. All right, so it looks like it's going back. All right, so what an interesting coincidence that I just happened to get kicked off of Google. It signed me out and everything. I have another YouTube channel I've mentioned before. I do it kind of to relieve stress and everything. It's about comic books and stuff like that. I've mentioned that several times here. And I do Google Hangouts all the time. And only once have I ever been kicked off, and that was because my computer froze. This one, just for some reason, just decided to go blank in the middle of talking about very interesting things and disconnected me. So it could be one heck of a coincidence, who knows? But the person that asked the question, if they can answer it again, I really appreciate it. So I apologize. It just seems that if you talk about certain things that are sensitive, you just coincidentally get kicked off of live chats. So we're going to continue where I left off. So I totally lost my train of thought, so I apologize for that. We'll continue where we do. The person that asked the question, if they want to ask it again, I will continue going based on what they were saying. But if you want to be a part of this and ask a question, all you have to do is just look for where it says in the bottom left-hand corner, be a part of the conversation, click here. It'll open up another window. Look on the top right-hand corner, you will see a icon that looks like a white Rubik's Cube. Click on that and you'll see the question. And then when you click on that, you'll be able to answer questions. So for some reason, I got booted off of this live cast. You know, whatever it is. But I like when you talk about these kind of interesting things, that situations that normally don't happen do. But, you know, some will just say it's paranoid and everything like that, but whatever. So again, if you are the person that asked that last question that I was going into the topic, if you could re-ask the question again, or if somebody else wants to ask another question, you can. But when I was talking about with the money, if you look at your nickels, dimes, and quarters, I mean, they look the same as when they did 40, 50 years ago, but the metals are different now. And that's the illusion. I mean, before that, we had not only silver certificates, we had gold certificates. And before that, we had gold coins. So they take away the metal. I mean, this is not anything new. I mean, they did this back in the days of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, they were the first government to guarantee 80% silver in their coins. And over time, they started taking out more and more of the silver and filling it up with different types of cheaper metals. Until one day, people basically found the lie, and then the system monetarily collapsed on itself. This is no different. Unfortunately, we see all these governments throughout history. They are very greedy. And one of the things that I do remember part of the question, where he was talking about this is going to affect the entire world. You're absolutely right. Because like I was saying, now I remember what the question was. There are people in other countries that say, oh, I'm so glad that the U.S. is going to fail, and I hope it fails. There's an old saying, be careful what you wish for, you may get it. Because what people may or may not understand is, all currencies are connected to one another. They're all connected to the U.S. dollar. And when one system falls, they all fall. So let me just see something really quick. Who wrote this? Somebody asked a question. Charles Wilson, I just got back in. How will this problem stop when we have the people who control this world pulling the strings? How can we live in peace? That's a very good question. And I welcome you back. And unfortunately, I got kicked off of Google, so that kind of threw off the whole thing. I don't know if there's only 2 viewers at the moment, but people, once this is done, it'll record so people can watch it anytime. So I just find it funny that I got booted off of Google. I actually had to re-sign in, which has never happened before. But the people in control, this has happened throughout history, where the few control the many, and they use fear, they use greed, and they use entertainment. I mean, look at all the different movies and different forms of entertainment that are out to distract people. Why would anybody care as long as they're getting free things? And that's why if you look at the fact that most of the world is primarily poor, They love getting things for free. I mean, look at the welfare system just in this country alone. How many millions of people? There are over, I think, are close to, if not more than 40 million Americans that are on a government-assisted program. And I can guarantee you many of those people would be able to work. But why would you want to get a 9-to-5 job or work 40, 50, 60 hours a week to make the same, if not less, than what the government will send you in a check for doing nothing? It makes people lazy voluntarily, but it's all a choice. But what that does is it keeps them in the system. And if you can keep them happy by just throwing them a few scraps, they tend to not have a problem. You notice that since the gas prices have gone down, people are not as angry. Remember in 2008, 2009, 2010, when gas prices were getting close to almost $5 a gallon, how people were getting very mad? So there's a method to the madness. So as far as how we live in peace, I mean, it depends on the masses. If the masses are more concerned about what's going on with Hollywood, and they're more concerned about looking the other way when things happen, there's never going to be that harmony. And it's unfortunate that there are few that thrive off of our labor. Because if you think of any form of slavery, it's some people benefiting off of other people's hard labor. And unfortunately, we've been drilled, especially in this country, that slavery only had to deal with one particular type of person. Now, that's not to take away from the fact that all slavery is wrong. To make somebody do something against their will is wrong no matter who or what you are. But if you look throughout history, the Romans had slaves. The Greeks had slaves. There's all different types of slavery. But the problem is, if you can get it limited to a certain type, then you'll have people who hate one another based on what they've been told. Because a lot of the things we fear and a lot of the things we get mad of, they're things that have been taught to us. I mean, fear is not something we are born with. I mean, if you take a newborn baby, and I highly recommend you don't do this, but if a newborn baby was placed into a box filled with scorpions, tarantulas, and cobras, the baby wouldn't be trying to run out for its life. It would probably try and play with the things because it doesn't know any better. It's until we instill that fear in them that they are aware of what that is. And that's why one of the first words most children learn is the word no. Because you ever see a baby when they're trying to grab something and a parent just turns around and screams no? Their first response is to almost get scared. And they look at you with this surprised look on their face. It's part of the programming system. So when it comes to how we control this, it's first of all, you got to let go of the fear. You cannot be afraid and allow it to dictate what you do in life. I mean, obviously, you can't control what others do, but you can control what you do. And the problem is, that's why you see like popular shows like Alex Jones and others. You may think they mean well, but a lot of it is to help instill fear in you. So this way, you are easily controlled, because when you're afraid, you'll always want somebody to protect you. And it's almost like, think about it being in an abusive relationship where a person is abusing you to the point where you're so scared to leave, but you also think, well, this person's also keeping other people away from me because maybe they beat up an ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend or what have you, and you think, oh, I'm protected by this person. So we have to understand it's time to get rid of that fear, because it is a choice. Now, I see that when I first did the other podcast, I had over about 20, 25 people viewing. Right now, there's only about 3, so I don't know if people see it or they can't see this anymore. So I'll just keep talking for a little bit, and if nobody asks any questions, we'll just end it early, because unfortunately that it did its purpose. It took away from the views by taking me off the game. But yeah, that's it. I'm expecting that at this point. It doesn't surprise me. But when it comes to the monetary system, that's the biggest form of control. How do you fix it? Well, for example, if you don't like the way the banks treat you, well, don't put your money in a bank. It's plain and simple, because you have to understand things about control. They use emotion, which fear is the biggest one, but they use greed. They use your selfishness sometimes, your desperation, your loneliness, your trust to capture you voluntarily. Because, like, for example, and I've said this in other videos before, let's say you have a telephone company. I did this on actually a live show on my other channel just earlier today. If you have Brand X phone company and you're paying about $50 a month in bills, and then all of a sudden the next month it's now 100, then 150, and they don't change any of the surface, they just raise the price. Well, if you just stand there and pay the bill and just complain about it, well, what do they care if you're complaining when you're giving them money? And it's the same thing with all governments throughout history. If we look the other way when they go and invade another country, or they go and attack other people and steal their wealth, and because we don't see it in our backyard, we pretend it doesn't exist, well, we're part of that problem. And we have to take responsibility. And when we realize where most of our money is going, it's not going towards bridges and roads that they teach you in school. Because school is not private. It's public. It's run and regulated by the same government that does the things like war. So the people have to really think about this as far as control, because they program you. They make you think about things. And in school, what do they teach you? Get a job, put your money in a savings account until you retire. Now, if you put your money in a bank, well, especially nowadays, what do you get? 1% interest if you're lucky? When I was a kid, it used to be 5 to 6%. Now it's likely to be 1%. And now some places are talking about negative interest. So that means if you put your money in the bank, you're paying them to put your money in the bank so they could actually lend it out and make more money off of you. Why do that? So if we have issues, we have to hit them where it hurts, in the wallet. Because like I was saying with that phone company thing, if you're paying $50 a month and all of a sudden they raise it to $100 a month, and you and let's say 5,000 of Brand X phone company customers, they're still paying their bills, but they go with picket signs in front of Brand X's building and say, oh, this is unfair. Well, if you're still paying the bill, they don't care. Because not only are you still paying the bills, but you're now giving them advertisement. Because if you get a bunch of people picketing in front of a major corporation, what's going to happen? You're going to have the news posting it on the television. You're going to give them free advertisement. So you're helping them. So if you want to change the world, it's all about, the first thing is hit them in the pocketbook. And that's one of the reasons why I will buy gold and silver, even the collections. Like I've talked about, I have another channel for my stress relief. I do stuff, I talk about comics, but that is that's taking my fiat currency that potentially loses value and invests it in things that can have a different return. Now, there have been people in the world that say, oh, well, you can't eat gold and silver. Well, that's very true, but can you eat dollar bills? Can you eat credit cards? No. So it's the same theory. It's just people that just don't want to have that kind of agenda going. But if you look throughout history, it's always returned, and it will do it again. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So let me talk and see that the next one, Jess Weskolowski, forgive me if I say it wrong, says, hey, Chris, what are your thoughts? I'm assuming you said thoughts. What are your thoughts on the hollow earth theory? Well, it's just that. It's a theory. Now, unless I were to take a shovel and dig all the way down until I either reach a core that I can't penetrate, or I see that it is hollow, remember, a theory is just a guess. So the one thing I've learned with my experience on YouTube is everything. You're going to find lots of dead ends, lots of misinformation, and lots of times where the quote-unquote truth can be stranger than fiction. So could the earth be hollow? I'm sure it could be. It's not impossible. There's plenty of theories, and there's some good ones, but that doesn't mean it's true, accurate, or something that we could verify. And that's why, like I did one video on the whole flat earth versus the round earth thing. I mean, to me, unless you have proof that says this is the way it is, it's basically going based on what they feel sounds the best. And that can entrap you in things. So, I mean, whether the earth is hollow or not is really not relevant to what we are having to deal with as a species right now. And that's the control. And the fact that the very few become wealthy off of the masses on their labor. So, I mean, that's a topic for another time. I really don't get into that stuff that much anymore because to me, there are just other things that are just more important. That doesn't mean that that's not important to you. And it very much could be, but whether the earth is hollow or not really isn't going to change the slavery issue that we have to deal with. So I appreciate that, and I hope you look into it more and do your own research because you never know what you might find. All right, Charles Wilson writes, how right you are, fear, dependency is their key. And it's very true because if you get somebody scared, especially when it comes to a government, if the government is always telling you in the news and in the media and everything that, oh, there's another terrorist that doesn't like you and the world wants you dead and, you know, all of a sudden bad guys are going to come and invade you at any moment, you're going to want them to protect you. It's almost like, think of it like an old mafia movie where you see like a mom and pop store and they're doing their business, going their merry way, making a decent living and trying to survive. Then all of a sudden, a gang of mafia thugs come in and start wrecking the joint. And then they go to the owners, well, you know, if you pay us protection money, we'll keep stuff like this from happening ever again. Well, they're the ones that caused it. So you have to give them money to protect you from the very people that did this to you? See how silly that sounds? But isn't that kind of how governments work? Throughout history, and so many people say, "Oh, aren't you're so anti-American?" No, there's nothing to do with that. It has to do with every country in the world, because, like I was saying before, with currencies, they're all pegged to the U.S. dollar. So when one goes, they will all go, and that's why when you see if there's any problems in the stock market, either whether it's here or in Great Britain or China, it affects the world, and it affects it now in an instant. So think of the world like a set of dominoes. Once one falls, they could all fall down with it. So we have to be very careful